My next guest is Dr. Donna Wyford. Donna is a distinguished professor of education and human ecology in the College of Education and Human Ecology at Ohio State University. She is also a faculty affiliate with the Kerwin Institute in the Center for Latin American Studies. Professor Ford is in the Department of Educational Studies and the Special Education Department. Dr. Ford is the creator of the Ford Female Achievement Model of Excellence, FAME. She is also a two-time board member of the National Association for Gifted Children and has served on numerous educational editorial boards such as Gifted Child Quarterly, Exceptional Children, Roeper Review, Journal of Negro Education, Gifted Child Today, and Journal of Educational Psychology. Welcome to the podcast, Donna.
Dana, thank you for the invitation. It's good to be here.
Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast, and we'll talk a lot about what you've been doing to really increase enrollment in gift education for students of color. But we'll start off with this question I ask everybody. Tell me about a time when you were in the trenches and managed to crawl out.
Well, Dana, there have been a few times, but the earliest one, which is most impactful and memorable for me, is growing up in Cleveland and East Cleveland, Ohio, with my mother and two sisters. I'm the middle child, and we grew up on public assistance. But what I want listeners to know, or viewers to know, is even though we were growing up on public assistance, my mother had high social economic status values. She was determined that we all were going to do well in school. I couldn't get less than an A or a B. All right. And then, so she had those high standards. She was determined that we were going to graduate from high school and that we were going to go to college. And we all have gone to college. I have my PhD. My two sisters have my master's degree, have a master's degree. And Dana, my mother, she got so motivated seeing us in college. She even got not just an undergraduate degree, she has a master's degree. So one thing I like to say is our zip code and our skin color is not our destiny. And just like my mother promoted achievement for us and we followed suit, other families can and must do it as well. So you can work your way out of poverty, and not only to a higher income, but actually to a higher SES status, socioeconomic status.
And that leads a little bit into our discussion about the achievement gap and what got you interested once you started working at the university, or was it even earlier when you were studying to work a lot with just the achievement gap and gifted underrepresentation of BIPOC students? Tell me about how you got started with all that.
Absolutely. My PhD was, excuse me, in educational psychology with a focus on gifted education. And I was and am passionate about the underrepresentation of Black and other minoritized students in gifted and talented education, which I'll call GATE, G-A-T-E from this point on. And, advanced placement is AP. But I was just determined that some of the experiences that I had, because I only gave you one really troubling experience, that would not happen to minoritized students in education, no less GATE. So I did my dissertation on not just the achievement gap, but more specifically and concretely why Black gifted students in East Cleveland, Ohio, were underachieving. So I want to make it clear, the achievement gap is usually almost always about Black students not doing as well as white students, Latinx students not doing as well as white students. The norm, in air quotes, is always how we doing to white students, okay? So, but instead of just looking at that, which is crucial, I wanted to know, let's take a look at, let's say, Donna. I'm not comparing her to white students. I want to know how is Donna performing right now? And can she perform at a higher level? And so that's underachievement, not performing up to my potential. So that's the angle that I looked at and still look at to this day. And I must add that the achievement gap is fueled by minoritized students being underrepresented in GATE and advanced placement. And then it also is influenced by underachievement. students losing interest in disengaging in school.
So for secondary schools that have like IB, MIP, and AP programs, as we record this at the beginning of the school year, what can educators do to increase the enrollment of BIPOC students in these programs? And you told me that you have you look a lot at the Blooms and matrix, as well as the inequities and disabilities.
Right. So the underrepresentation of minoritized students, Black and Hispanics specifically, in GATE and in AP, Dana, is influenced primarily, extensively by teachers' low expectations, which contribute to under referrals.
Mm-hmm.
So every single study, Dana, that has been done on teacher referrals of Black students has found that has every single study that has been done on why Black students are underrepresented in GATE
Mm-hmm.
has found that teacher referrals are the number one reason. All right. So this is about attitudes, dispositions, expectations. So every study, Black students are under-referred, and in about half, Hispanic students are under-referred. So this is what I and others not just call low expectations, but deficit thinking. And my quote is, the less you know about others, the more you make up. So the less this predominantly white teaching force knows about Black and Hispanic students, the more they make up. So yeah, testing matters, but that's not the number one reason. It's dispositions. So we have to train educators. That means teachers, that means administrators, counselors, anybody working in schools. We got to train them to be anti-racist and culturally responsive. Then we will get more referrals. And at the same time, we will dissect these tests that are being used, which I, to this day, still believe are biased against minoritized students, as well as any student who lives in poverty. But it starts with dispositions. And until we change teachers' perceptions of Black and Hispanic students, we will always have underrepresentation, and it will continue to be significant. So what do I mean by significant? The last Office for Civil Rights Data is from the Civil Rights Data Collection at ocrdata.ed.gov. Again, ocrdata.ed.gov. When you look at their data, it shows that, for example, Black students are 19% of schools. However, we're only 10% of gifted programs. So that's almost a 50% discrepancy. Hispanic students were, I think, 26%. And then I believe it was 16% of gifted programs. So that's like a 40-something percent, a little under 40% discrepancy. So when we say significant, it's not just those percentages. We are talking about over 1 million Black and brown students combined who are not accessing gifted programs each year. And the mirror is the same in advanced placement, AP.
Yeah, so I mean, I see that all the time. Like, this is, like the testing you talked about, the underrepresentation, especially working in a school myself with a large amount of Black and brown students, with a GT program and IB program. So, just making sure that, the school is really using culturally responsive pedagogy and anti-racist pedagogy as well. So talk to me a
I'm
little
sorry.
bit,
Yeah, I'm sorry.
about.
Let me just say something, Dana,
Oh, go
and
ahead.
then
Go ahead.
I'll address your next question. Dana, I've been in gifted and talented education, advanced placement since 1991. We're talking about 30 years. 32 years, half of my life. I'm 61. All right. So 32 years. And if you were to say, well, name a school district right now that has equity, I want to use the word equity in their GATE and in their AP, I can't tell you one. I've done thousands of consultancies, but I cannot tell you one. And that speaks volumes to how unjust this and racist this
Mhm.
problem really is.
Mhm. Mhm. So talk to me a little bit about the Bloom's-Banks matrix. We discussed that in the pre-chat. So you talked about the 6 levels of Bloom's and the 4 levels of Banks,
Hmm.
and how these quadrants make up how we serve our students.
And that question, Dana, is extremely timely
Mhm.
based
Mhm.
on what's happening in Florida and other places where they're talking about slavery,
Mhm.
ensure that we had a trade, etc. And against this push against critical race theory, as well as against having AP history and more, AP Black history, I'm sorry, and
Mhm.
more. So it goes on and on and on. We don't have enough time for me to list these injustices in schools, and mainly by race, not just economics. But with that said, I am really troubled by the color blindness, which I call culture blindness,
Mhm.
that exists not only in representation, but also in the curriculum. How can we make sure that not just gifted and talented students, but all students see themselves mirrored in the curriculum, mirrored in the literature, to borrow a concept of mirroring from one of my colleagues who has retired here, Sims Bishop, Rudine Sims Bishop. So how can we make sure that minoritized children see themselves reflected in positive ways? We're in the
Mhm.
curriculum sometimes, but it's not in positive ways. It's in very racist and stereotypical ways. So that is my goal. So with that in mind, and I'm sorry, how can we make sure, again, to get beyond low expectations, to turn that into high expectations, that we teach at higher levels?
Mhm.
All right. We promote rigor, not what I call rigor mortis in the
Mhm.
curriculum. We
Mhm.
need rigor. And before I describe my matrix, I want to say that multicultural curriculum, anti-racist curriculum, culturally responsive curriculum, I use those words interchangeably. Those are for all students, not just
Mhm.
damn white students. All
Mhm.
right. And not just damn minoritized students. They're for white students as well. So all students in every school district needs this curriculum. So what I did was take Bloom's taxonomy, which is just about every teacher has been exposed to, those 6 levels, right, of how to infuse rigor into the curriculum. And I work with all of the levels, but the goal is to get to the top 3 levels. All right.
Mhm.
Which is analysis, evaluation, and creativity. All right, so those top 3 levels. And then I merged those, the 6 levels, but really paying attention to the top 3, with James Banks's 4 levels of how
Mhm.
to infuse multicultural content into the curriculum. So here we're talking about contributions, which is called the 4 F's: food, fun, fashion, and folklore. It
Mhm.
promotes and reinforces stereotypes. It dehumanizes us. Then we go into additive, which is where teachers add multicultural content to the curriculum, but only in certain months, like Black History months,
Mhm. Mhm.
Hispanic Heritage Month. All right. And it's more than that, but it's additive, it's temporary. And
Mhm.
then teachers add the multicultural content into a safe way. So if there's a book that focuses on racism and sexism, and yes, this is at the elementary level,
Mhm.
all right, too. If it focuses on both of those isms, teachers will feel comfortable, this primarily white female teaching force, will feel comfortable talking about girls can do anything they want to. So they're getting at the sexism, right?
Mhm.
But they don't address the racism, where
Mhm.
in the book, the character is Black and told that she can't, be, whatever it is. I'm really
Mhm.
talking about a specific book, but I don't really like naming them.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
So, excuse me. But so then you got the 2 isms, but teachers only want to address the sexism.
Mhm.
So that is the additive level. And then those are considered low level. How do we get to transformation? and how do we get to social action, which
Mhm.
some people like to call James Banks' fourth level, the highest level, social justice. So transformation is transforming the curriculum in every day, I'm sorry, in every subject area. Every day we're trying to infuse multicultural content into what we're teaching, okay? And then not just, every day, but we don't play it safe.
Mhm.
All right. This is where, we get students to really think about a topic, an issue, a population from more than one perspective.
Mhm.
All right. And
Mhm.
so with that, you're transforming thinking so that they become, critical thinkers as you do at, Bloom's, excuse me, evaluation level. And then the fourth level is social action. And this is where you have truly engaged students, empowered students, enlightened students, and more so that they have a social action philosophy. And if there's an opportunity, they get involved in a social issue that they're passionate about, that may be taking place in their school, in their classroom, in their community, even globally,
Mhm.
but they are passionate and they want to do something. So they're thinking about the philosophy is there, but with the older students, there's more opportunity to actually implement this, not just think about it, but to
Mhm.
implement it. So my matrix combined those, and it's called the Bloom Banks Matrix, and it has therefore 24 cells, 6 times
Mhm.
4, 24
Mhm.
cells, and they're divided into 4 quadrants. So you have low on Bloom, low on Banks, very dangerous, color-coded red.
Mhm.
Then you have high on Bloom, excuse me, and low on Banks, and that's caution. So it's
Mhm.
color-coded, well, like I'm dressed in yellow. All right, caution.
Mhm.
Then you can be the opposite. All right, low on I forgot what I said was quadrant 2, but low on, let's say, Banks, but high on Blooms,
Mhm.
and we do that blue. But green, a win-win, is high on Banks, high on Bloom, and we
Okay.
want for every child. All right, but within those quadrants you can differentiate.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
Do more to challenge gifted students.
Mhm. And would people just access that visual on your website then?
Yeah, I have one or more on our website at drdonnawildford.com.
Okay.
And there's some blank matrices and there's some sample matrices that are completed. So
Mhm.
what you do is you take a blank matrix, you
Mhm.
take a lesson plan that you've already created or implemented, and you are, okay, that question goes in this cell, not just a quadrant,
Mhm.
but in
Mhm.
this cell. That item goes in this cell, etc. So you put all your material there, and then you look at it and you see, okay, hold on, I got to do a lot more with that fourth quadrant, high
Mhm.
on Blooms, high on Banks. So it's not something else just to do. It's your you can call it a checklist if you want to,
Mhm.
um, in order to make sure that you do get high on both levels. And also the matrix is in a couple of my books, but the one I want to mention is Multicultural Gifted Education.
Mhm.
You can find it in there as well,
Okay.
edition 1 and edition 2.
So you said that you've been working with this for over 30 years, and um, you know, have you seen a little bit of change in recent years of teachers moving more instruction and assessment to make it more culturally responsive? Has there been like the needle moving at all with
Okay,
maybe
so
adding SEL and things like that?
well, this is the frustrating thing for
Mm-hmm.
me. When I get asked to come to a district
Mm-hmm.
and do consulting or professional development or formal evaluation,
Mm-hmm.
I rarely get to see the fruits of my labor.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like drive-by professional
Yeah.
development sets me and more. So that's why, like I said earlier, I can't tell you a school that is doing well. all right, including here in the state of Ohio. I've been back here for 4 years. I was in Nashville for 15 years. I don't recall a school then that I could name. And even if I couldn't name them now, they may have regressed since then. Okay, so has the needle moved? Not in representation.
Mhm.
I can't really say what teachers are doing in the classroom because I talk about we need to recruit minoritized students, meaning desegregate GATE and AP. We also need to retain. What are we going to do once students have been placed, in GATE and in AP? So I like to be optimistic and say that there is some change, but I'm not witnessing it. And in all of my years, as you said, little over 30 years, I don't see demographics changing much for Black students. There's been some improvement for Hispanic students. Asian students every year are overrepresented. So there's high expectations teacher have of them, that model minority stereotype. So when Asians don't do well, there's concern. When Black students don't do well, it's like, well, I'm not surprised. We got to get rid of that thinking. There's no place for that in education. So no, I'm not seeing much change. And I don't like to be pessimistic like this with your listeners, but I just don't. So what I like them to do is look at their own data for gifted and talented education, look at their data for advanced placement, look at suspension and expulsion, look at special education. And if you don't have quick access to that, go to ocrdata.ed.gov and you can look at your school building, you can look at your school district, and you can get national reports as well that are already have already been written by, say, OCR or NCES, National Center for Educational Statistics, and so forth. All right.
Okay.
So,
Okay. I'll definitely put that in the show notes so people can access that. In the bio, I mentioned that you founded FAME, which is Female Achievement Model for Excellence. So talk to me a little bit about this program and how many young women have benefited from it.
so as I mentioned earlier with the children's book, when I was describing banks,
Mm-hmm.
I do believe that mainly because it's a female teaching force, educators are doing much better, including counselors,
Mm-hmm.
addressing empowerment of girls academically and vocationally, career-wise. Okay. So, excuse me, as I think about, your question, I think about, feminism movement as well. It wasn't created with minoritized people in mind.
Mm-hmm.
And so I am really thinking about just two things with the FAME model, these larger ideas. And one is addressing feminism. Okay. And then the other is addressing racial identity and
Mm-hmm.
pride.
Okay.
So I just believe that you do better when you love the skin you are in.
Mm-hmm.
You do better when, even if a boy or a girl doesn't like you because you're doing well, you're
Mm-hmm.
like, with them, I don't give a damn. I could care less.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I've always been. It's your loss if you don't like me because I'm smart,
Mm-hmm.
right? And by the way, thank you for not approaching me because I don't like you because you don't like me because I'm smart, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, my hair is naturally long, but when I turned 18, I cut my hair. I couldn't stand it because I only thought boys liked me because my hair was long. So it's still real short to this day. And if someone approaches me and says, you know what, you're attractive, but I usually like girls with long hair, get out of my face.
Mm-hmm.
If
Mm-hmm.
you like long hair, grow your own damn hair. And yes, I do curse. Grow your own hair. Get out of my face. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
gonna get a weave or grow my hair
Mm-hmm.
out so that you like me. And thank you
Mm-hmm.
for letting me know. Adios. Goodbye. Good riddance.
Mm-hmm.
So I want minoritized girls to have this attitude of loving the skin they're
Mm-hmm.
in, as well as having a pride about being intelligent and a
Mm-hmm.
high achiever, having goals for yourself, being focused, all right,
Mm-hmm.
and so forth. So with those two major themes in mind, I created the FAME model, the Female Achievement Model for Excellence. And it's it's about your attitudes and about yourself, your views about yourself. It focuses on social issues and how you can manage those. Of course, the focus is on academics. We want you at the highest level of performance and so on. So, but that has been written up with me and one of my colleagues, Tanya Middleton. But it's also, the model is on my website again, drdonnawhiteford.com.
Okay. Okay. And then you have worked with students during institutes every summer leading up to maybe the pandemic, and you're planning on running another GT Institute in 2024?
Right. So I've run several institute on the male version, the scholar identity model with Whiting. But just when I was about to implement Institute for Girls, pandemic hit. And I'm proud to say that I wrote an internal grant for my college, and it got approved for me to do that. And then the pandemic has hit. And I know that, we're still recovering. It's going to be for a long time. So I'm trying to really let schools bounce back a little bit more, so that then when things are more, organized and maybe consistent, then I can start working with the girls again. And the focus will be on, racial identity, racial pride, but it's also going to be on academic identity and pride.
So talk to me a little bit about the Black males promoting a scholar identity with Dr. Gilman Whiting that you've also worked with in terms of this scholar identity model and the 9 characteristics of a school that tailors to Black males.
Sure. I think the model was created by Whiting in 2000, maybe a little bit before 2006, but I think our first institute was in 2006. We had about 100 Black males from 5th grade to 12th grade who came on Vanderbilt's campus, and it was, they came there daily, all right? It wasn't residential, so they came there daily. And we focused on the 9 constructs of Whiting's scholar identity model, which I should say I also used to create FAME, but I added female things to it, okay? And more attitudinal. But anyway, so there's 9 constructs. And so they came there for 10 days. Each day we focused on a construct. And we were there, I believe, from like 8 till 2 or 3 each day for 2 weeks. And the model, that too is on my website with 2 articles. All right. So the model has those 9 constructs. And like one of the constructs is self-efficacy. So how can we get Black males or males of color, and of course females, to have this sense of agency? I want to do well. I'm going to do well in spite of. All right. So and then so we teach them about Albert Bandura, who's a theorist. We introduce the model. We have them have some discussion, then do some quick like 10-minute products that they show us, so that we make sure that they understand that construct. So it's future orientation. So it's self-efficacy, which is agency. It's future orientation. It is need for achievement being greater than need for affiliation. It is masculinity, not taking away anything, but it's like boys, masculinity. It's okay to carry a book. It's okay to be the top student. It's okay to be in gifted and talented programs or advanced placement. It's okay that you like to read more than you even like sports. That's what we're talking about when it's about masculinity, not gender orientation or sexual orientation, anything like that. We teach them racial pride using William Cross's model. And by the way, I'm not going in the order of the constructs. I don't have it in front of me. I'm just going, by memory. And I did
Mhm.
not keep track of how many I named just now, but you can find all 9 plus some short videos on my website. And Whiting has taken the Scholar Identity Model nationwide and out of the United States as well. I
Mm.
remember, I think he has gone to India several times
Oh, neat, neat.
as one
Yeah.
example.
Okay.
Mhm.
And this institute, has this been back up and running since 2019, or is this still on hold as well?
I think it's been up and running
Okay.
uh, from Whiting at Vanderbilt. I've
Okay.
not participated.
Okay. Okay.
Mhm.
And you let me know in the pre-chat that you're currently working on an update to your 2010 Multicultural Education edition. So let me know when that will be out, and if you're working on any other publications in the next year.
Yeah, I want to get that multicultural gifted education third edition out, and
Hmm.
third edition also for reversing underachievement among gifted Black students. Again, that focused on my dissertation, but I like to keep it updated and relevant, focusing on not just the achievement gap,
Hmm.
which underrepresentation fuels the achievement gap.
Hmm.
Underachievement fuels the achievement gap. Okay. Not having access to advanced courses contributes to this, major black, white, or brown, white achievement gap. And by the way, I know I mentioned this earlier, but I didn't dig into it, and I know there may not be time, but overrepresentation in special education and
Hmm.
overrepresentation with discipline, those fuel, those contribute to, those exacerbate the black, white, and brown, white achievement gaps.
Hmm.
They're
Hmm.
also called not just gaps, those are traps. Because
Hmm.
once you are, in these uh, certain categories of special education, and once you're a low achiever and an underachievement, who's there to support you if there are racist ideologies?
Hmm. 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 Yeah, and that's like you said, there's it's a trap more than a gap in terms of the discipline and special education. So when can people expect that third edition to be out?
Well, I hoped that for both of those, I'll get them submitted by the end of the year.
Hmm.
Then it'll take a few months. So it will be a 2024. They will be 2024 publications, but they'll be out, I'm hoping, early within the
Hmm.
first 3 months of
Hmm.
2024.
Okay. Well, we've had a great conversation today about your work and your research and the different models that you've used. Out of everything we've talked about today, what's one thing you'd like listeners to remember?
Well, I didn't talk about this, but I
Hmm.
want to say that I was an ABC, a Better Chance student.
Hmm.
I got a scholarship to go to this private high school in a Cleveland suburb. I could have gone to hundreds of schools, but
Hmm.
I never really traveled, so I wanted to stay home. But anyway, that this one teacher destroyed me so much. I went into that school thinking I was Black and beautiful, Black and brilliant, going
Hmm.
to do well in spite of being low income. I mean, this was my chance to fulfill the American dream. This
Hmm.
one teacher tore me to shreds.
Hmm.
And trigger alert. I mean, I really do mean trigger alert. As strong as I am, was then, I became suicidal, Dana.
Wow.
I just thought it was me against the world. There were not many Blacks in that school, and I just couldn't. I was accused of theft, almost seemed like daily.
Hmm.
Accused of cheating if I did higher than the white, wealthy girls, not just high income, but wealthy, and it just destroyed me. I won't go into details, but you could. That was 1976.
Hmm.
Replace 1976 with 2023, and this is
Yeah.
still damn happening now.
Hmm.
And so that is what drives me to why I'm so prolific as a writer and prolific as a speaker and outspoken. I am not going to be silent. And I
Hmm.
hope that your listeners understand. Do not be a damn bystander.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be a bystander. You are being taught to be an advocate. You are being employed to be an advocate for
Mm-hmm.
your minoritized students. And so you need to earn that damn paycheck,
Mm-hmm.
right? So my message is you can do better. You must do better. Or, Dana, they need to leave the profession.
Mm-hmm.
There's no
Mm-hmm.
place for sexism, classism, racism in schools. You need to get out because you should do no harm. So I grew up, and I'll end with this. I grew up on TV, watching TV, and all the time, the United Negro College Fund had these
Mm-hmm.
commercials, and it said, "A mind is a terrible thing to waste." And I'm like, I'm smart and I'm going to do well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm going to do well. I'm not going to waste this. I've been blessed. And but in this field of gifted education, this elitist field of gifted education, this classist field, this racist field, I see students like myself who gave up in the 10th grade.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
my son had issues as well when he was in school, primarily elementary. But I flipped that. A mind is a terrible thing to waste from the United Negro College Fund, Dana.
Mm-hmm.
And I say as a mind is a terrible thing to waste.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's what
Mm-hmm.
I see happening.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so important to remember, and just like you said, it's still happening. There are students that are experiencing the same thing that you experienced in 1976 till today.
And
Yeah.
Dana, it happened not just in person, it happened on Zoom. There was
Mm-hmm.
policing black bodies on Zoom by teachers,
Mm-hmm.
as well. So, you have to watch and make sure certain things are not in your background, or
Mm-hmm.
teachers are calling the police on you and more.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got a lot of work to do. We've got a
Mm-hmm.
lot to do. And I am not being a pessimist. I'm being an optimist. And I'm saying when you get this extensive, ongoing, real, authentic professional development, as well as courses while you're getting your degree or getting your certificate and so forth, you will be not just a better person, you will be a better educator for
Mm-hmm.
all of your students, not just some.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, where can people connect with you and find you online?
Well, I'm at the Ohio State University in the College of Education and Human Ecology, but online, and I have my personal website, which I just mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm on Facebook and I'm on Twitter. I forgot the new Threads. I'm on Threads and
Okay.
I'm on Instagram, but I'm primarily on Facebook for some reason. That's what
Mm-hmm.
I post more about and on.
Okay. Great. Great. I'll make
And
sure I
I,
include.
by the way, and I'm sorry, Dan, I just use my name, Donna Y. Ford. Make sure you use the middle initial Y. And
Okay. I'll make sure I include that in the show notes along with your website. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the Out of the Trenches podcast. We had a great conversation today about your work, and it really hits a tone. And I hope teachers will really advocate for their students, like you said. And, not all the districts or schools are providing this type of professional development. It's important that teachers go out there and find the resources themselves to really help move the needle forward with this achievement gap and those tracks.
self-advocacy.
Mhm.
Yep, self-advocacy. You're right. And yes, the achievement gap and the achievement trap.
Thank you so much.